Today, let's discuss success in 2021 and being intentional about it. And by success, I don't just mean financial success. That's obviously a place we could all focus on being successful in, but success is so much broader than finances. You can be successful in life and have not a penny to your name. And so whatever success means to you in 2021, I want to just discuss as a group, strategies to help get us there. And that could be financial success, physical or health success, mental, emotional, spiritual success, relational success, success in a business endeavor. Success could be, hey, this is a vacation I want to take with my family in 2021. Do I achieve it or not? And so a resource for you all is a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And this book was published in the 30s, I believe. And Janine, I'm sure, is familiar with this book. And it's an
I've read it many times. It's great.
Yes, as have I, and listened to it on audiobook and just consume it however you can, because it's one of those books that every time you read it, it talks to you in a different way. But the backstory is interesting because Napoleon Hill was a college student who was interested in, I think he had a journalism assignment, and he met Andrew Carnegie, and Andrew Carnegie was the steel mogul in the US. And basically Carnegie commissioned him to spend the next 20 years of his life laying out the philosophy of success. And the way that he did it was he had to interview 500 of the most successful people in the US at that time. And so for 20 years, Napoleon Hill dedicated his life to interviewing the Carnegies, the Fords, the Rockefellers, those types of people, to get their histories, get their wisdom, and tease out of all of that a philosophy of success. And so we all get to benefit from that. And so the book documents, lays out his philosophy. And there's many offshoots of the book that I've also read and listened to, written by him, that each of them have, different ways of saying a similar thing and speaking to you in a different way, depending on where you are in your life at that read or that listen. So, if we boil it down to nuts and bolts, he says success comes from he has 17 laws of success. So I'll let you go read and figure out all 17 of those. And I highly recommend it as maybe a read for the break between Christmas and New Year's. But what you definitely have to have is a major definite aim. And so this isn't like setting a New Year's resolution and, by January 18th, you've already quit that, right? This is something that is a major definite aim that basically becomes a passion or an all-consuming goal that you're not going to quit on until you achieve it. And that's much different than the woo-woo kind of goal setting for the new year thing that people, like I said, get rid of by the second or third week of the year. So is there a major definite aim that's just burning inside you that you keep pushing to the back burner because it maybe doesn't fit in your life as your life is today, right? So what does that look like? Maybe you're in a job that you hate and you have a passion, but you haven't pursued it because you haven't figured out how to monetize it, right? And you have to support your family and all of that. Well, read the book, and you probably figure out that when you're pursuing your passion and your purpose, it has a way of working out for you. And so the second step in having that major definite aim is you have to have enthusiasm and faith. And so enthusiasm is if we keep that same metaphor or example, you're in a job you hate, you have a passion that you want to monetize, but haven't figured it out, so you're not taking that step. Well, if you take that step, even though you might not have everything figured out, you have enthusiasm and a burning desire to make it manifest, so you're more likely for it to happen that way. And then faith that it's going to happen propels you as well. So from there, obviously you want to have a plan, because you can't just, if you know the Bible, it talks about faith without works is dead, right? So you want to have faith that you're going to accomplish something, but you also need to do the work to make it happen. And that's where having a plan comes in. And the plan can be formulated by you yourself, but I would highly recommend, and I'm sure you've heard throughout your life, having mentors and learning from people that have done what you want to do will help you get there faster. And so that's where this mastermind principle comes in at the bottom. The mastermind is creating a group of 2 or more people with the same major definite aim. And essentially, this is synergy, or 1 + 1 = 3, right? 2 minds pursuing the same goal are going to achieve it faster and more efficiently than 1 mind, because 2 minds, you know, he talks about in the book connecting with the infinite intelligence, or essentially we have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. Conscious mind is conscious, right? That's what we're aware of all the time. The subconscious mind is our connection with the infinite, so to speak, right? And all the wisdom and knowledge that's ever existed to humanity. And so the subconscious mind, if you have a major definite aim and you pursue it with enthusiasm and faith, the subconscious mind is always working to help figure out ways for you to achieve that goal when you're awake, when you're asleep, etc. And it's connected to infinite intelligence, so it's connected to, you know, all knowledge throughout history. And so while you're working or sleeping, it's doing its job to help connect you to the information you need to make your plan a reality. And if you have 2 people or more in a mastermind with that major definite goal, pursuing it with enthusiasm and faith, it's more likely that, you know, 1 or more of them are going to get that nugget or that inspiration they need from the ether or infinite intelligence or God or whatever you want to call it. So this might seem kind of weird to people who are hearing it for the first time, but, you know, Napoleon throughout the book documents, you know, Thomas Edison and Henry Ford and the Rockefellers and this guy Milo C. Jones, who Milo C. Jones was a farmer who never made much money. He became paralyzed when he was, I believe, 71 or in his 60s, paralyzed from the neck down. And when he's laying in bed, he realized, I can do more with my mind than I ever could with my physical body. And he developed and grew a multi-million-dollar business in sausage from his bed as a paralyzed, you know, 60 or 70-year-old guy. So he walks through examples of people who just decided, hey, I'm doing this. This is my major definite aim. I'm not giving up till I accomplish it. They back it up with enthusiasm and faith that they're going to make it happen. You know, they create a plan and follow it, and they partner with people, whether it's spouses or business mentors, or doesn't matter who, but people who have the same major goal to make it happen. And I personally have you know, used these steps in my own life to achieve many different things, from, you know, maybe athletic goals to business goals to, you know, marriage relationship goals. So I would encourage you to read it, invest this week between Christmas and New Year's in some mind stimulation, mind growth, and let's make 2021 the best year yet. And best year yet, you know, is defined by you and whatever best means to you. So I'll open it up for comments, questions, etc.
Well, I'll make a comment.
Sure.
I could make several comments.
Go for it.
Talking about the plan, which is really goal setting. They did a study at Yale, and they took a graduating class and they followed them for 30 years. And at the end of 30 years, they asked them, how many of you have set goals and followed those goals? And only 3% of the class actually did that. Then they asked them, how much money have you amassed during those years? And what they found was the 3% had the same amount of money as the 97%.
In total.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. And again, you could roll your eyes and say, yeah, whatever. But I mean, every single time, you know, those are results that people find is having a plan is going to get you there better and faster. And So thank you, Janine. What else? What other comments do you have on that? I know you're full of them.
Ooh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got tons of comments.
Well, give us some.
Okay, let me think. Well, I put my clients through a process called Your Best Year Yet. And a couple of the first steps, actually the first step is to take a look, and we're at the end of the year, so it's a good time to do it. Take a look at 2020 and ask yourself, what went well in 2020? And it can be little things, it can be big things, but it really forces you to go back and look at the year in total and really highlight all the positives, big positives and little positives. And then the second step is to take a look at all the things that didn't go right. And so you write down what you might consider your failures. And what people usually find is they have far more failures that they can write down than they do the successes. Mm-hmm. And then after you've got your pluses and your negatives, then you ask yourself, what have I learned from this? And what can I take into 2021 that is going to make it different? So those are the first, actually 3 steps in the process.
That's awesome. You actually made me think of one of my favorite quotes from the book, and it is, every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. Mm-hmm. Right? So, you know, even if you have more failures than successes, instead of framing those as, oh, you know, there we go again, why set goals, I'm just going to fail. You can look at those failures as, well, the perceived failures as, well, what was the potential benefit that came out of that, right? And then we can learn from that. And oftentimes, you know, an example would be a business could say, well, COVID wrecked me this year, right? But at the same time, that same business could say, well, you know, early when COVID happened, a lot of my chiropractic friends, they dropped 70% of their business because of people scared to go in, because chiropractic, you have to, you know, go in person to actually get care, right? And I talked to a few of my friends and I was like, well, why don't we look at this as, where's the opportunity in this, right? And how could I create alternate streams of income in case this happens again, or in case they say we're not essential and I can still, you know, keep my family afloat or whatever. And so if businesses were flexible, they could have seen, okay, Zoom is an opportunity. And hey, maybe we don't have to spend all these hundreds of thousands of dollars on brick and mortar. We can work from home and be much more profitable, right? Even if we're doing less business this year. So every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit, but you have to, he has another great book that he wrote with W. Clement Stone. And I personally, for me, it's been even more powerful than Think and Grow Rich. And it's called Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. Mm-hmm. And I believe I've spoken about it on the calls before, but if you're looking at it from a negative mental attitude, well then, oh, business is bad, COVID, woe is me, what the heck? Or a positive mental attitude is, okay, how can I capitalize or succeed or benefit from, yes, I don't control this situation, but if I'm positive, I'm going to do better in the situation than if I'm negative.
Right.
So let's frame it from a positive standpoint.
PMA.
Yep. What else? Karen?
I was going to say, well, I didn't know we were talking about this tonight. And
surprise.
Yeah, I saw this and it made me laugh. Dave Ramsey posted something on his Instagram and he said, God feeds the birds, but he doesn't throw the worms into the nest. Rise and shine, hustle and grind.
Yeah.
So,
amen.
You know, it stuck with me. And then we're talking about this tonight. And I guess if we're talking about health related things and doing a goal setting with health related things, it is for me, and I know others too, it's really hard to keep enthusiasm when you're not feeling well, first of all,
Mhm.
and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel because you're just in it. Like if I remained how I was day 10 into my protocol, into my program, and I didn't have you there just to say, hey, look, stay strong, this is what it could be, then you just want it to end. You don't want to feel bad anymore. And it's hard to think, okay, the big picture. It's hard to look at the big picture, then excuse me, and then to get, because you're so focused on, I didn't sleep well last night, my morning's not going very well, and it's all the little build up things. And so I'm interested to read this book, I really am, because I think that's a great step. And obviously, Dr. Bartemus, I mean, you are, you wrote a book and you have a young family and you have a thriving business. You have 24 hours in a day. So do I. I didn't write a book. Sometimes I can't even, so, and that's another thing. If we were going to talk about something I was going to talk about with the group, it's like, how does everyone find balance? By the way, I'm doing much better. It's the progress I have been able, and I said this, I've been able to eat more things that I couldn't eat before by being on this. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Awesome.
So,
Well, that's great to hear, and thank you for sharing. I think you, and maybe you realize this now, definitely when you read the book, you will, this weekly meeting is a mastermind of sorts, right? Because everyone here has a goal of being our optimal selves from a health perspective, but being your optimal health from optimal self from a health perspective allows you to be your optimal self from all perspectives, right? And so, part of it is, this is a mastermind, and where we can all come on, we can share our wins, we can share, here's foods that I found at the store that are healthy and clean that work, which, oh, that's awesome. That opens up my diversity for this week, and I'm happy because I don't have to eat the same thing again, right? Or you might have a tough week where you're struggling with XYZ. Hey, someone else on the call, I've been there, but try this and you're going to be okay, right? Another reason I do things the way I do is, sometimes people get to 6 weeks and they don't feel any better. And if we only go by what is human nature, which is feeling, hey, I don't feel any better, I'm failing, right? If we don't assess objectively, then we don't know any better, and you and I both think we're failing, right? But if we have objective 6-week testing that says, look, your physiology is changing positively in X, Y, and Z, and unfortunately, you just happen to be a person whose subjective changes are lagging behind the objective, right? The physiology is changing. The quality of life hasn't so much yet, but hopefully that physiological change and proof is enough to encourage you that, hey, you're not wasting your time, or you haven't wasted your time so far in doing these hard things, right? So pairing the objective with the subjective helps us kind of talk us off the cliff a little bit for people who aren't feeling better as quickly as they'd like to. And me as a doctor, it helps prevent me from, say, making wholesale changes to a plan, because the evidence, under the hood is saying, no, you're right on. We just, hopefully with time, the subjective stuff catches up and we start to feel better as well. Obviously, I want you to feel better day one, and so do you, but it varies. So last thing to piggyback on what you said, Karen, is the positive mental attitude thing. And that's got, and especially, I mean, that's harder initially correcting that than changing the food and all of that, because we're thinking 24/7, right? And thoughts are, nervous system, mind, and the nervous system functions off of plasticity, and neurons that fire together wire together, right? So if we have this negative pathway that we've fired for years, it's really hard to make new ruts down a positive pathway, right? Especially when we get stressed or we didn't sleep well, it's even harder to control our thoughts, in that scenario. So the positive mental attitude part, again, sometimes sounds fluffy and wooey and not really actionable, but if we can win there, that can be life-changing, because the same person in the same discomfort, but with a positive versus a negative attitude, the life is different. And that's shown physiologically too. It's called, the field of studies called psychoneuroimmunology. And so they've done studies where they take pessimists and optimists and they inject flu virus straight up their nose, and the pessimists get sick more frequently than the optimists. So, positivity, negativity matters, mind state matters. And it's something we have to focus on early. But the good thing is, again, neuroplasticity can work against us or for us. So when we have enough in the positive direction where it starts to become habit, well, now that rock's rolling downhill, right? So it's easier to be positive the more successfully you are being positive.
Maybe you need a mantra.
Yeah. There's one in the book, in the Success Through Positive Mental Attitude book. It's I feel healthy, I feel happy, I feel great. And you have to, actually say it out loud and with enthusiasm. And,
Right.
it's kind of like goal setting, start your day with it, end your day with it. And for me, I put it on an index card and put it right on my dashboard. So every time I get in the car, there they are, repeat them out loud, that sort of thing. So a little behind
That's great.
yeah. So it's repetition, because what are you hearing all day? Cases are increasing. We're all going to die, right? So the more you repeat, I feel healthy, I feel happy, I feel great, you're opposing the negative programming that is everywhere. So, in a way, the zombie apocalypse is just letting them think for us, right? If we're not intentional about our day, about our thoughts, about our goals, and having our plans, then we're going to get what all those people in the study Janine talked about. We're going to get what the world gives us, which is mediocrity. So the fact that you guys are even on this call shows that you want more for yourself than average. And average is mediocre, and none of us are made to be average. So keep rocking.
Well, another thought too is sometimes when we say let's say I feel healthy, the mind doesn't believe it. So you can also add, you feel healthy, she feels healthy. So it's like somebody else says it to you and you believe it more, or you overhear somebody else talking about it, like she feels healthy, and that takes care of it.
Yep. Or even Karen feels healthy.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Specific to you. And again, if you're doing it with feeling and enthusiasm, like you're like about to jump, like that, the body, think about your life and all the moments that you remember most clearly, they're all charged with emotion of some sort, right? So if you charge these things with emotion, you're getting it to the subconscious more effectively, versus like every day I could wake up and be like, I feel happy, I feel healthy, I feel great. And it's like, wow, that was
Right.
that was convincing, right? But when you're doing it charged with emotion or enthusiasm, right, you're more effectively creating that pathway, drilling it down into, conscious and subconscious. And then with repetition over time, it just becomes natural. I have certain affirmations I've said for every day for years, and it's, I wake up in the morning, I'm half conscious, I'm saying them, I'm walking the dog, I'm saying them, going to bed, I'm saying them. And it's just like, when I'm saying them, sometimes I don't even realize I'm saying them, because it's so baked in that it's just like, there it is, So once you're there and it becomes a part of you, that's now gone from mental to physiologic. Like,
So when you get into your car and you see your index card, do you literally say it out loud?
yeah, yeah, I'll say it out loud. And you know, one Bible verse that I learned when I was 12 years old, and I basically said it every single day of my life at least once, is fitting for what you all are trying to do too. And it's basically the Bible version of every failure brings with it the a seed of equivalent benefit, equivalent or greater benefit. And it's no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who've been trained by it. And that's Hebrews 12:11. You know, so no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Oh man, changing my diet stinks. Getting up early and exercising stinks. You know, changing from negative, which is thoughts, which is easy and I'm used to positive thoughts, which is hard, stinks. So no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful, right? We all can relate to that. Later on, however, you know, with consistency and repetition, it yields the benefits of peace and righteousness for those who've been trained by it. So define peace and righteousness however you want, but say just peace of mind. You know, if I'm positive and have a plan and I'm in control, I'm not anxious or depressed, right? Righteousness, you could say, I mean, you could translate that as just I've created the life I want to live, or I'm living the life I want to live, not the life that media tells me I should live, right? So translate it however you want, but to me that's just something I learned way back then, and it's kind of a pillar I've built on for myself.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah. And then one of my goals for 2021, I'll share with you, is I want to expand my online presence in terms of offerings. So like say an online course or that sort of thing. So, you know, on my index card, I have for 2021, I have that goal, and then I have the action steps I need to follow in the short term to get that going. And when I meet that, the next action step for the next longer term to get it going, right? So right now, the short term step was I needed to reach out to this guy named Doug, who builds out, you know, who coaches and helps people build out online courses. And you know, get on a call with him and figure out what does that look like? What's my next step? Is my idea right, or do I need to develop it further before I'm ready for that? So, you know, but at the same time, one of my other goals is I want to take a vacation every 8 weeks with my family this year, which vacation might just be, you know, shoot up to the mountains, you know, for a long weekend or whatever. But my wife's home with 5 kids all the time. I want her to, you know, have something on the calendar to look forward to kind of break it up, right? So, hey, Airbnb and I'm blanking, but Asheville, you know, for a 3-day weekend. You know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but just she likes to leave the house. Like, can we get a change of scenery? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, we could have been doing that for years. I've wanted to do it for years, but I just talk about it instead of sit down with the calendar and say, all right, Kate, let's pick, you know, a weekend every 8 weeks and do it, or else it's not going to get done. So yeah, it's simple. Just what's your goal? And then you have to have concrete action step, right? If you don't have action steps, it's just a dream or a wish.
Right. And write it down.
Yeah. And the writing it down kinesthetically, you know, is more impactful for your brain, and actually writing it down, not typing it in your phone.
Right.
So like index card, write, like do the actual action of writing.
Well, and that wakes up your subconscious brain too, and it causes it to go to work for you.
Mm-hmm. And to really succeed, you have to get the subconscious on your side. What else?
Now, Janine, are you a life coach?
Yes. Life and executive coach, both.
So I guess, and I don't know what everybody else does, but you also have 24 hours in a day. And I'm just wondering, like, how do you squeeze it all in and because you have to, well, most of us, have to be there for someone else. There's some kind of responsibility involved, but then there's you, and you have your own goals, but then you're trying to, I call it being a shine maker, where you set people up. And it's like my kids are older, but my son's not going to sit and fill out a form. I'm going to sit and fill out most of the form and say, okay, you need to sign this. And that's what a shine maker does. It's like you are the assistant to the president. And so you're doing all the grunt work and whatever, and you go make that person shine and make their life easier. So when it comes to you, sometimes I just don't know how to manage my day, especially like, and I haven't failed on the protocol. I've been doing the protocol and everything that's specific for me. And I haven't missed or forgotten, but I'm just wondering how you find balance in your day. What does a typical day for you look like?
First of all, I set boundaries. And I always have time for myself. Because if you give and you give and you give, you have nothing left to give yourself. So if you give to yourself first, and then you can filter in the others around you. So and I had to learn that the hard way, because I took on so many clients, and I was working. And then at the end of the day and at the end of the week, I was exhausted. I had nothing more to give. So when you have nothing to give and then you want to have a personal life, you have nothing in the pot. So you just want to hide out and sort of recharge. So you got to put yourself first. Set the boundaries, because a lot of people, particularly women, have a hard time setting boundaries. And you've got to be assertive in what works for you, and do it in a way that honors the other person and yet honors yourself.
Thank you for that.
And a good example of that would be caretakers. For say you had a parent with Alzheimer's, right? The studies show that caretakers are more unhealthy than the patient or the person they're taking care of by the end, because they've given so much and neglected their own health to help whoever the person is that they're helping. And so Karen, mine may not be as well said as Janine's, but I'm saying this out of love. Okay. Consider when you're thinking about boundaries and everything, consider whether being the shiner for that person is damaging that person, because it basically enables them to be perhaps lazy, or maybe abuse the relationship, because like, oh, I know she'll do it for me.
Dependent.
So yeah.
Dependent.
Thank you. So if by creating boundaries for yourself and helping yourself, you're also probably helping that person. They might not perceive it that way in the short term, but longer term, an adult child needs to become an adult and drop the child part.
Right. Well, and it goes also along the lines of respect for yourself. We can't expect other people to respect us, and yet we all crave that. But the bottom line is we have to respect ourselves first, and then others will respect us.
100%.
Yeah.
So things to ponder.
Yeah. And it's I don't know, you guys, it's tough love, and it's all good. That's fine. I mean, yeah, that's
We're not-
This is like a deep subject tonight, and we're not even talking about like charts and graphs and health and all that stuff. We are talking about health in a different way. It's just,
Right. It's emotional health
yeah,
and mental health.
yeah.
which, you know, if you get into Western or Eastern medicine or alternative medicine, you know, a lot of say health philosophies say that health or lack of health starts out here in the spiritual and emotional and ends up physically manifested as the last point. So, you know, this topic directly impacts health. It just might not manifest right away, or maybe the reason that we're working together is because of non-physical things that have built up over years and resulted in physical, if that makes sense. So, you know, doing the emotional work, the mental work, the spiritual work has both short and long-term health implications. And it's unfortunate that I mean, it's good that at the end of every year, people are like, oh, I'm going to sit down and goal set. And, you know, we need that little respite and that week off and that intentional time. The unfortunate thing is there's 51 other weeks that we could be doing that too. So you ask, there's 24 hours in a day, how do you get so much done? You know, one strategy is there's various names for it, but there's like your power hour or whatever you want to call it, but you're waking up in the morning intentionally starting your day with your time, where you're planning, studying, and praying or meditating or whatever it is, right? So that no matter what else happens the rest of the day, you've had you time and you've been intentional about what am I going to get done today? Like, what are the goals for today? There's another good business book called Eat That Frog, which basically talks about, you know, take the 3 things you don't want to do the most that day and do them first, and then the rest of your day is amazing. You know, so be intentional about the creation of your day every day, not just the last week of the year, right? And then you'll create those habits and that routine, and next year you'll look back and be like, holy cow, I accomplished more this past year than I did the 5 previous years.
Well, set an intention every day and then focus your attention on your intention.